This story happened in 99. And this was a story that happened to me. I was a valet also for 12 years. I love cars. I love everything about them. So I was working this night. And what I used to do to differentiate my service from the other valets, I used to memorize cars. So if you go inside and you're in a red Honda, I'm going to realize that you're wearing a white shirt. And when you come out and I see you coming out the restaurant, I'm going to grab that red Honda, turn on the air, turn on the heat, whatever's appropriate at the season, and have that car waiting for you with both doors open. When that happens, you know you're only going to get $5 or $10 worth of tips, so I'm happy, and these are the type of services that I provided. So what happened, there was a gold Mercedes diesel. How often do you get these things in? So when the customer came in, I had it parked, but little did I realize there was another gold diesel from earlier in the evening. So the restaurant that I worked at was a part restaurant and part bar. And this guy was upstairs in the bar and he met a very attractive girl and he was trying to leave. But prior to that, I did not realize when the earlier customer left with the gold diesel, I gave him the wrong car. I gave him the guy who was in the bar's car who was trying to talk to the ladies. So when he came outside, he realized his car was gone, but there was a replacement gold Mercedes waiting for him. The problem was, and he was really going to take that gold Mercedes home, he didn't have his house keys and he couldn't get inside his house. And he was very upset and very angry with me because he had a girl that said yes. So he was really pissed off and there was nothing we could do. What happens in these particular cases, the good thing is the registration's left behind, so all I had to do was look up the registration and see who it was and the address and call that person up. This is during the time of yellow pages and people still had home phones. They answered and said, unfortunately, you have the wrong car. You didn't take the right car home. Please come back to the restaurant. So they came back to the restaurant, they exchanged cars, and the guys were able to go home on their way. But by that time, unfortunately, the girl had left with another guy. So he was really pissed off with me, and every time he came into the restaurant after that, he would always give me a hard time. This one was pretty funny. We had a story where 3 guys came into a club, and they were driving a Volkswagen Jetta. And what happened, the valets recognized that 3 of the people were a part of the car. So what happened when one of the customers came out, he asked to see the keys to the car. So he gave him the keys, figured he needed something out of the car or something like that. So he gets out of the car, he's relaxing and everything like that. The valet gets distracted and starts doing other things. Little did he know, the car starts up and the friend leaves. The car is now essentially stolen because about an hour later, the actual driver came out and he said, "Where's my car?" And he's like, "Well, the other guy who was with you took the car." He's like, "Well, I barely knew him. He was just in my back seat, but that wasn't really my friend." And the valet's like, "Uh-oh." So we now have a stolen car at about 2 o'clock in the morning. So we call the police. The police are on the lookout for this car and everything like that. We know who the guy is, so they're able to get over to the house probably the next morning at 7 a.m. They see the car awkwardly parked in a parking space. The guy had hit a curb, and for some strange reason, he stole the radio, the factory radio. Why would he do that? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, we fixed the car, got a new radio for the replacement for the Volkswagen Jetta. And about 3 weeks later, we're doing an interview, and I get a call from my other manager, and he's like, "Alex, you have to come into the conference room and see this." I said, "Okay." So he says, "Sir, how did you find out about our job?" Because we like to ask people, how do you find out about our company? A lot of people we're always interested. So the best use of advertising later on, advertising dollars. This guy said, "Hey, a couple of weeks ago you had our car stolen, and I liked the way you handled everything, and I just wanted you guys, I figured you would be a good company to work for." I couldn't believe it. We had his car stolen, and he still wanted to work for our company. But that was pretty funny. He actually worked with us for about 2.5 years, and now he's a realtor. But that was a great story. This happened probably back in 1999. It was a very popular restaurant at the time here in Atlanta. And again, it was one of those narrow driveways. We call it a shotgun driveway. So you can only get, if you're in the middle, there's no movement of those cars. You can only move the front car and the last car. So there's probably about 12 cars in the driveway. And again, so we leave those cars running. So the valet hops in the front car, moves it forward. A second guy drops in the next car, which was an Oldsmobile, I think a Riviera, something like that, and started the car and tried to pull off. The valet reached into the car and tried to cut it off, but the guy was able to get the car out. For some strange reason, when that car was stolen, the lady was very upset. She was a lawyer, which is one of our worst clients to ever deal with if anything goes bad, because they want to sue us for everything. Anyway, we had to go through the whole process. The car was now stolen. It was out of our possession. We never found it again. So we had to now dispute what were the charges. Not the charges, but what was the value of that car. She tried to say it was a low mileage car, and it was valued at $7,000 or $8,000. But what happened, I don't know how, but the valet knew exactly what the mileage was, because when he reached in the car and he was trying to turn off the key, he just remembered seeing the odometer, and it read 252,000 miles. So unfortunately, when you have high mileage, that devalues your car. And I think at that point, that car was worth maybe $2,000, $2,500. We were able to give her additional money, and I think overall we paid her $3,200 for the items that might have been in our car. But she was very upset that we were able to remember her mileage but not safely take care of her car. So we were very apologetic. This happened early on in our career, and we learned at that point, never ever leave the keys with the vehicle if we're not right there, if we're not planning to park it right then at that moment. This is another strange story that happened at the beginning of 2018. We had a valet that was pulling up, or a customer that just came in, and a valet was about to get in the car, but for some reason he got distracted, and it was a very poor decision. He left that car running. He didn't even realize the car had been stolen until the next day. The reason why, this person came in quite late, and he never categorized it, and he never even parked the car, so he was never even in charge of the ticket. But what happened later on in a given night, when all the cars were all the cars were done, this customer was still inside the restaurant in the corner, and the valet never saw this person. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, we get a call that this car is now stolen. It's a Mercedes CLA 250. I think it was 2012, 2013, fairly new car. And this person, of course, you want to guess the profession? That's right, a corporate lawyer. So, well, of course, we're starting to deal with it, and the lady's being very helpful too. She's like, I'm going to go back to the restaurant the next morning and see if I see any evidence, or if I'm able to get a hold of the cameras to see where this car went. I get a call. She says, I'm back at the restaurant, and my car is in front of the restaurant with the key on top of the windshield wiper. Really strange. She's like, my car is no longer stolen. I have it back in my possession. So I'm like, whew, thank God. But that's really strange. What in the world happened? So I had to call the valet in. We had to get in touch with the building management, who was very secretive about giving us the actual footage. I mean, what would you do in this particular case? I don't know, but I was starting to get upset. This is a type of building where it is a restaurant, apartment complex, and all these different things. So what happened, the actual, I think, resident was waiting for an Uber. The Uber was taking too long, so he saw a car running, and he got in the car and drove off with it. But what happened in this particular, we here in Atlanta have license plate readers, which means there are these cameras on the telephone poles that pretty much read your license plates and tell everything about that car. And once it hits the next license plate reader, which could be about a mile down the road, you can pretty much tell a pattern of which way this car is going. This car just happened to drive around in a circle for a 6-hour period, and that was it. Then apparently they brought it back to the restaurant after the joyride, put the key on the windshield, and that was it. So what happened, the rim was damaged, so somehow they probably hit a curb or something like that, and that was it. So she wanted her rims replaced, so I replaced the 2 front rims. And then what I did in addition, when we were the tires were at the shop, the wheels were at the shop, the tire company said, you know what, the tires are very low, they need to be replaced soon. So out of courtesy, we did a mistake. We replaced those front tires for her. So she was very happy. She was very pleased. So that's the least we can do for her inconvenience. So this last story, the number one stolen car in our books, was a 2000, I believe, don't correct me, 2007 Acura RL. This car at the time was probably $40,000, $45,000 car back in the time. And we had this car come in. We had a private party on the street. And what I mean by that is it was in front of a venue, so we took the cars on the street. We had a lot of people come in at one time, and the valets inadvertently, or on purpose, not on purpose, but left this car running. So of course the little kids in the neighborhood jumped in the car and took off. We called the police, and we didn't hear anything more about it that day. The next day we get a story that the car was involved in a police chase. The police saw the kids driving a car, chased them, and the kids lost control and slammed this car into a tree. Did extensive damage and essentially totaling the car. They pushed the radiator back into the engine back into the firewall, and there was a lot of damage done. So there was no way of truly fixing this car. Of course, the owner was very upset, pissed off, and felt that we were responsible, which we were. Even though the kids were found in the car and they know exactly who did it, we had deeper pockets than them, and these kids would never be able to pay for the damage, so they put it back on us. So we had to now turn it over into our insurance, and it turned into over a $28,000 claim. Now, even though the insurance company paid for it, they would not pay for the contents that were in the car, so the lady came back and sued us. So we had to pay an additional $4,000 or $5,000 in, of course, property that was in the car. And it was hard for us to dispute because we never knew it was there in the first place. But overall, we're the ones that are responsible for that in the first place. So that's what happened in that particular case. So tell me, what would you do in these particular cases? I know some of these we weren't responsible for, and they were just out of our possession for a minute or 30 minutes or something like that, which are big relief for our company. But overall, what would you do in the other particular cases? People ask, do I fire the valets afterwards? Nah, not really. But overall, we just have to learn our lesson, and that's pretty much what we try to do moving forward. So coming up next, we're going to have another top 10 stories. Stay tuned, please. Subscribe, like, comment, tell me what you think about this, and we'll continue on the next round. Thank you very much.